Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is me, Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host our show, Life After Happiness. Today, I have my co-host, Barbara. Are you there, Barbara?
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And I have other co-host, who is also the guest today, Kelly. Are you there, Kelly?
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on as your guest today.
Of course. We're
Okay.
excited.
Thank you. Me too.
You've always, it's funny, you how long have you been interested in the paranormal? I mean, were you interested in it when you were, say, a senior in high school?
Oh, gosh, much before. I had
10?
a friend. What?
10 years old?
Like before that, because I would watch the old Twilight Zone episodes when they would repeat on TV. They had some other paranormal shows that I would watch, and Tales from the Crypt and, different things like that. So I was always interested. And then in middle school, I made a friend who was also interested in it, and I learned a lot of things from her brother and her. Like, they were into different things, and some of which I refer back to now, like when I do some things.
Wow. Kelly, before we get into those things, which I really want to know what specifically they are, I wanted to ask you. I know you are a Christian, and you know how some Christian families, parents, they think that the paranormal is weird or evil. They describe it as something they just, why are you talking about that? Don't look into that because they're worried that it's evil. Did you go through any of that growing up, or did you just not tell your parents? What happened with that?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in a Christian home, and it was okay to watch shows about it. It was, we would talk about it or, ghost stories or whatever. But when it came down to, like, people having psychic abilities or some people that, would go into, like, divination, fortune telling, things like that, they really were cautious because, there were people I knew that knew, like, magic, and I'm not talking about, like, party tricks. So those were mostly the ones that they were really leery of. And, but they were also leery of trying to develop any kind of a psychic power because they figured, for them, we don't know where this is coming from, and it might not be coming from God. It could be, luring you from the devil, making you think that you have special things. So, yeah, it was, something that I kind of studied, and they kind of knew and they advised me, but they didn't, stop me. But when I was over at my friend's house, they were more, into magic sometimes and Ouija boards, and I tried the Ouija board one time, and I will never touch one again. And,
what happened?
Just curiosity. It was weird. I kind of blocked out some of this stuff, but with that, it was freaky, and it opens up a portal that I don't like because you don't know what's going to come through, what or who, and I just, I don't want to deal with that kind of thing, I don't want to try to purposefully open up something like that, that a lot of times.
Purposely.
Yeah. So that's something that's better left alone. And I've heard a lot of horror stories, and that you can't get rid of these things, and it's like, yeah, I don't need that. And, I ended up not really hanging out with those people anymore when they did some sort of spell on a teacher because they had like a test the next day to try to have the teacher be sick, and the teacher was sick. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel comfortable coming here anymore, and I'm not going to tell them why. I'm just going to be busy. That freaked me out.
Because you know what I learned now is that if you use your gift for something evil and on the dark side, it will come back to you. How many times? I think Vanessa Orr told me like 3 times. So you have to be very careful to not do that. And I think young people, that is smart of your parents to talk about it and be concerned and warn you, because when you're a child, you dabble in things and you don't know the dangers. And, you know, I remember my parents saying, don't do the Ouija board, but we did too. I had that experience with my girlfriends on an overnight in their basement room, and a weird thing happened to that too. And we got really scared. But when you're a kid, you kind of like to be afraid. So I just wondered if you experienced the same thing. I think it's pretty normal for kids to be experimental with that stuff, but it's nice to know I'm not the only one that dabbled in that. But I want to ask you exactly when. Do you remember exactly when, or is it just kind of blurry and it came on gradually? Your gift of being a psychic, your gift and your abilities, do you remember one specific time that came to you?
I think I've always had it, and I didn't realize that I was any different than anyone else because looking back, it's kind of bizarre to be standing, be like 5 years old and be standing on your patio and have a bird come up and then fly onto your finger. I mean, things like that don't normally happen.
No, that's
I thought that was normal. Thank you. Yeah, I just thought that was normal, and communicating with animals, understanding what they want, what they're feeling. I thought that was normal, And then it's just really like a lot of these gifts, I, had no idea was different until I was like talking to people and they look at me like I've got 3 heads, and I'm like, what?
And then you realize, and you're saying, well, you don't do that as well? And then you realized, okay, I'm different. And did you ever feel like you had to hide it?
Yeah, I did, because I wanted to be able to fit in. And it was, I was relentlessly picked on for being, they finally told me later on, for being too nice and easy to pick on, but it just, I fit in kind of, but not really, and I felt awkward. There were a lot of awkward times growing up, and it felt a lot like people didn't understand me, and I had to, I was very sensitive, so I had to try to pretend like what people would say at school, the mean kids, I had to try to pretend like it didn't faze me. And I think that it was very easy to tell, that it did, and that's what fueled them to keep going.
Yeah. Well, I understand that completely.
What happens when you think about it right now, what those kids were saying to you? What happens when you think about it right now? Is it different, or what do you see it differently?
Well, I see it as I didn't understand what was happening. They didn't understand. And later on down the road, a lot of times I found out that these kids weren't adjusting well because they had a lot of issues going on at home. And I didn't have a perfect home life either, but I was really good at hiding it and hiding the things I was going through. Because I had to hide my gifts, but I also had to, I was also very self-conscious, and, I'd get bashful if somebody, gave me an award or something for, I'd get bashful and didn't really know how how to respond because I was trying to not be noticed, I guess, because I was tired of being picked on and thought it was different. And then, yet, I had moments where I wanted to shine, and sometimes I did, but then sometimes it had the wrong effect with the wrong kind of attention, and I didn't like that. And I think the empathic part of my gift was kind of a blessing and a curse at times because I could, and I could walk into somewhere and tell if people were upset or angry, and it would really affect me, and it would, like, sometimes cause me to get physically ill, and I didn't know what to do with that. It's like, and, it made me afraid to go places sometimes. I mean, I still did, but, if you know that there's some bullies and they're waiting for you after school, and you try to outweigh them so you don't have to meet with them, it's just things like that oh, I don't want to go around this corner because so-and-so is going to be there. Yep, and they are,
So much anxiety, isn't it?
Yes, I had a lot. And I had depression as a teenager. It was like I was in my own world, and, outwardly I looked fine. I looked well-adjusted. I got good grades. I was active in school with extracurriculars. But I was always on my guard.
Yeah, that is tough. But sometimes it's interesting how one class you can be so withdrawn, and then the next class you could be the one that is the center of attention and enjoy it. And it just so much depends on your environment, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes. Like sometimes I was the class clown, and sometimes, I was the serious student, and sometimes, like, you guys tease me about being, the grammar police, but one time I was not trying to be rude, but the teacher wasn't, doing it right, and so, I pointed it out, and she said, well, if you think you can do better, come up and teach the class, and I did.
I love that. It's hilarious. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. And those are the moments that we just cherish.
Thank you. I did really well, and that teacher didn't like me, and but I did really well.
That is hilarious.
She was crabby and old, and probably didn't want to be there, and but it was fun.
Fun moment.
Yeah. It was like, oh, okay, my little time in the sun, and I felt right at home. And it's funny because, I do teaching and outreach with my exotic animals that I rescue, and I've always been really great at teaching. And then, I've taught different people in like spiritual ways, that to understand things about, our gifts, because I can tell, like, usually, like, who's got what gift, or that they have a gift that they haven't explored yet. And, I can help bring awareness. And, because you can tell, like, after a while, you can just tell that other people are empathic too. And, like, I've talked to Karen Page, and one of my recent revelations was, I'm kind of telepathic. And
tell us what that
means
exactly.
That's like being able to communicate without saying words and without using body language. So it's like you can, like, say something to someone else without your voice or writing, and then you can tell what they're saying. And I've done that for a long time with my animals, but not realized it. And Karen told me that a lot of people that have that don't realize it, and they just tune it out, and they think, that it's not really there. But, for people, sometimes it is, and they don't realize. So it took me this long. What?
What a wonderful revelation that you just had. That's awesome.
Oh, thank
Do
you.
you feel?
I think that's
I
what I was
mean,
doing.
I mean, what did you do
Well,
to be able to? What things did you do to be able to talk about it? Your belief, your gifts more.
oh, to be able to tell that was happening?
Yeah, to talk
Well,
about your gifts more. What?
Well, to talk about my gifts more, this show has been such a springboard for that because, until this show, I didn't really talk about it. I didn't really, I had explored off and on, but I hadn't really done much with it because, it was kind of like, oh, well, I should leave that alone. But it's one of those things that you can turn it off a little bit, but you can't turn it off all the way. Like, once you have it, you have it. And some people try to dull their senses so they don't have it on all the time. But there's ways that you can learn to tune it out. So, I'm not on all the time.
That makes sense. And I'm glad that you're able to tune it in now, and because now you're sharp, and it's getting sharper daily. I wanted to ask you if you ever thought, someday I'm going to be able to use my gift for the good, and I'm going to express my gift. And did you ever think, I mean, I know you probably didn't think, oh, I'm going to be on a radio show per se, or a show, but maybe you did. But somehow, someday as an adult, I'm going to be able to use this for the good, and I'm going to help people, I'm going to teach it, and I'm going to use it. Did you ever think that?
Yeah, but not very often. But the person, Tim, who showed me how to hone the energy work, he was going to the Kalamazoo Center for the Healing Arts, and that's where they helped him with his, along with, learning massage therapy. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to be a massage therapist and use that. And then I didn't end up going to school for it because I ended up in a apprenticeship for licensed esthetician, which is a whole other thing. That's basically skincare, and you can work in, dermatologist's office and whatnot and stuff.
I didn't know you did that. Wow.
Thank you. I did that. I didn't get to get my license because the lady that was teaching me that owns a spa, she ended up getting a collapsed lung and having to move to San Diego to get away from the climate where you have such rough winters. So with her not here, I couldn't, do the board exams with her not here. So, but I learned a lot, and I was already an Avon Certified Beauty Advisor, so I've got professional makeup experience. And
well, no wonder you have beautiful skin. And you know what I've noticed working a lot with your photos? You have the most beautiful features. I'm like, wow. It's like, I mean, people pay to get the cheeks that you have, the round, beautiful cheeks, and the perfect lips, and your nose. I mean, a perfect nose and beautiful almond-shaped eyes with a little cat angle to them. I mean, you really are a beautiful woman, Kelly.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I was kind of fluffing around in a t-shirt and shorts and no makeup and my hair up in a ponytail today. But
it doesn't matter. You got the features that you can pull it off. You don't need it.
Are you wearing the show shirt?
No, I'm gonna my washer, and everything. My basement has a sump pump, and it's about to be disassembled and fixed. So I have to do all this laundry while I can, and that would be one of the things on the laundry pile is the show shirt. I'm wearing one.
Was the thing that appealed to you about doing the show was being able to talk about the paranormal, or was it just talking?
Well, it's basically meeting you guys is phenomenal. I mean, this is a family that like just fit. And meeting all of our guests and our callers, it's just this perfect place to be able to talk about anything, but to have the paranormal be one of the things we talk about and it's accepted, that is a big relief for me.
Yeah,
And,
that's why I was thinking you must really love that you got to have this opportunity and you are a co-host to this show, because now you can fully, I mean, you don't have to hold back at all, fully express your gift. And not just that, but just who you are in general and your wonderful personality, and share your life on the show. And because you could be the type that likes that, you love people and you are interested and you have a gift, but you also you love to do the show too. I mean, you're not afraid of the show at all. You love doing it. And I mean, how wonderful. It's just kind of like, so it's really perfect for you.
Thank you. And, to kind of add to what you guys asked me earlier about, the gift and did I see myself using it, if I didn't do the massage therapy, I was also thinking about becoming an animal communicator, because I'd read some books, and it's like, oh my gosh, I do that. And like one of the things that I have with my bearded dragons, and this might sound really weird, but I have a thing, and I've shown people that have come to my house, like Brian's seen it, a whole bunch of people have seen it, that if I ask them a question, if it's a yes, they'll wink with one eye. If it's a no, they'll shut both eyes and then open them. Or if they don't know or understand the question, they'll just kind of like stare. So
cool.
They do that. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute. Sometimes I'll ask them something and they do a wink like they're answering me and I'm not even saying anything. And that's when I realized consistently I'm able to communicate telepathically.
Wow, so your animals have brought a lot out in you that you didn't know.
Yeah, and Karen was like, well, yeah, of course you can. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is new for me.
Kelly,
wow.
You told me one time that after you did the first show that you were emotional. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, oh my gosh. I never thought I would be on radio because I thought, what the heck am I going to talk about? Like, who's going to want me on there? And after the first show, it was just like, oh, wow, I was able to help somebody and it felt so good. This is amazing.
It just flowed out and it came out so naturally, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was like, wow, I just hadn't, I was nervous hoping that it would work, and it did, because, if you get nervous and overthink, then you're going to cloud it up and it's not going to work. So I was trying very hard to just relax and let it work, let it happen. And it did.
And stay
and
zen.
It was amazing.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? You were given back for everything that you went through. It may be worth it because now you understand other adolescents who are going through the same thing. And please tell us a little bit about your group or your foundation. What do you call it, where you help kids and you have the children come and pet your animals and hold them? Tell us about that.
Oh, thank you. I have Kelly's Kids Exotic Animal Learning Center, and I'm thinking about researching with our League of 50 and seeing what it takes to make it a 501c nonprofit. But, this has been funded by myself, or my dad helps me begrudgingly. But I rescue exotic animals, and he's actually helped us with a church function where I took those, and he and his girlfriend Lori helped with the animals, and they saw why I do this. And the kids, sometimes they have a fear of a certain kind of animal, or their parents do, and they get to come up close and personal and have a interesting and fun experience learning about them and 9 times out of 10, they'll end up holding the animal that they were afraid of.
Wow.
And it's just a beautiful experience.
Definitely. And that may be the only time they will ever do something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful because if you do something like that that's different, that is a big memory in a child's life. And if that memory is attached to something where they're learning, then they're going to be able to learn more easily. So I would love to put the link to that page. I know you have a Facebook page on our website so people can learn more about your learning center.
Oh, thank you. That would be really awesome because I've gone to churches and festivals and schools, birthday parties, and I only bring the animals that really, really enjoy traveling and meeting a lot of people, so it's not stressful on them. And, it's a fun experience for everybody. I've never heard anybody say anything negative, and, sometimes the bearded dragons will even wear costumes. And, a lot of them don't
I
mind it.
love
The other
that.
ones just walk out of it. Yeah.
So
I don't make them
sweet.
wear it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh,
You guys have to go to Kelly's Facebook and check that out because they're so cute in their costumes. And then you also will see pictures of her. I love your yellow snake, and it gets in your purse. That's so cute.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, he's a character. And I had them all out in what I call dragon camp because they have like their little, they're like a screen tent type thing that they can be out in. And it looks kind of like a train of these because, this one doesn't play well with others. That one doesn't play well with others. They have their own cubes over here. The girls are okay together. These boys are okay together. So it's a group of these different sized tents and stuff. And yeah, it was fun. And then, they'll do the goofiest stuff. Like Brian was up on the roof cleaning out the eaves troughs for me. He is such a blessing. And, the dragons were, some of them were going crazy, like climbing, like trying to get to him, or one of them was really upset until Brian safely got down and then came over and held him. It was like they were worried for him. It was really cute.
Oh, that's so sweet. They really have personalities, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. And people that are into them really know. They notice it. And people that hadn't been around them before get really surprised and happy about it because it's really obvious that each one of them has a different personality.
Are there rules and laws about what exotic animals, different states where a person can own those as pets?
Yeah, some of them say that you can't cross state lines. Some of them are okay with it. Michigan doesn't really have a whole lot unless you are a breeder and then you have so many pair of a certain kind of animal. And, they're actively breeding. And then there are the ordinances for each little township and city, and that's where it gets kind of tricky because in one of them I was exploring, they need you to be a licensed zoo just to have one bearded dragon. And where I'm at, here in this city, they say the ordinance says you can't have any exotic animals, but there's like 3 pet stores that sell them, plus we have the reptile show. So it's like they don't enforce it, and the police have gone by when I've had all my dragons out, and they don't care. So, it's just kind of like one of those things that it depends on where you are in a state as to, like, what the individual laws are going to be.
Did you have these animals? What was that?
So it's confusing in a way. You really have to do your research and figure out, like, if I live here, can I do this? If I live there, before you start.
That's true. I wanted to know if you had these animals when you were growing up because it's not the typical, let's say, thing to own exotic animal, and plus you have so many, right? So did you grow up with these in your home?
Well, when I was growing up, my mom was allergic to cats and dogs, but we had a dog, and then, but there was a while where we didn't, and in kindergarten I saw this kid come in to show and tell with these green anoles, and they changed from brown to green, and they're, like, from Florida, and I was like, oh, wow, what's this? And then I found out where they sell them, and we researched, and, I asked my mom and dad, and they said yes, as long as I was going to be the one taking care of it. So,
how old were you?
I was in kindergarten, so I was like 6.
Oh, wow.
You
had a lot of experience with them.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah. That and fish and cats and dogs. And then, when I got out of an apartment into my house, I ended up, rescuing Patagonian maras. They're also known as Patagonian cavies. And they were the cutest brothers, and I bottle feed them. But I was told they would be fine in a house, but really they're not a house pet because you can potty train them, but they weren't really taking to that, and they like to chew. And chewing on my door and chewing on the trim in the room and stuff really didn't go well with what I was trying to do. So it was cool having them. They were very skittish, and I guess that's how they are at first. Not all of them are that way. But I called, Finder Part 2. I called around, and I found the perfect place for them to go at a wildlife animal park. And now they're part of the herd. Yeah.
Oh, that's
they're part
wonderful.
Of the herd. Yeah.
Wow.
And apparently other people have them too. So, yeah, it was just, it all worked. So, I had that cool experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you find that certain animals, whether exotic or just a regular house cat, do you find that you are able to use your gifts more with a certain kind of animal than another kind of animal?
For some reason, bearded dragons seem to be able to, identify with me, but that also goes sometimes for snakes and geckos and other reptiles. But, my sugar gliders seem to be able to have that bond and communicate. The fish does.
But what about versus a cat? What about versus a cat or a dog?
Like how they're different?
Just how you can use your gift to speak to them, with your gift. Can you speak to the exotic animals more easily than, say, a dog or a cat?
I think so because I'm around them more now. I did have some cats growing up that I was extremely close to, and we could communicate, but I didn't realize that's what we were doing. And I think that was what I was doing when I had that bird fly up onto my finger when I was 5.
Right.
But, I didn't realize that was what was happening. And then it was almost like being in a daydream where you kind of you're there, but when you suddenly get the realization of what's happening, wow, this isn't supposed to happen, then it's it makes that animal nervous and it runs away.
Wow, they're sensitive.
Yeah.
I
wanted
to ask you about something.
Too.
I wanted to ask you about something. We haven't. You don't have any audio recording of you talking about this, but I know that you've been married before, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know there was a really bad experience. I thought maybe to help other people out, you might talk about that experience a little bit.
Absolutely, because I feel like I went through that to be able to help other people. And I was in a relationship that I was young enough. I was right out of high school, my first semester at Western Michigan University, and he was a senior. And, you know, I thought, wow, this guy, I'm meeting him in church, you know, does it get any better? I mean, it had to be better than meeting somebody in a bar, but he was actually a predator. And, yeah, he was very abusive, but it didn't come out until we were married. And, like, the wedding night, he said, oh, now that we're married, I own you. And I thought he was joking, so I laughed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, well, he wasn't joking. And,
Horrible.
you know, and, like, we did a Circle of the Caribbean cruise, and it was, like, 11 nights, and that should be, like, the honeymoon of your dreams. But I was stuck on the ship with this guy that was being a jerk. And
who was your new husband? What a horrible feeling.
Yeah, and I almost didn't go. Like, the wedding night was bad enough that I was like, I don't know if I want to do this with you. And, you know,
weren't you afraid?
like
I mean, that he was going to hurt you? Did he ever abuse you, like, physically?
He did later on, but, you know, at that point, it was more like he was being rough and demanded that the wedding dress come off now, and I'm like, don't rip it, you know.
Oh.
And, yeah, it's not supposed to be like that, you know.
No.
And then I was like, that's why I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm getting on the plane with you tomorrow. And so, you know, we get back, I go to work, and, you know, he ended up, like, isolating me from my family because they were an hour and a half away and had no idea. And when they would call to talk to me, he would say, oh, she can't come to the phone right now. And then he would never tell me that they called.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
You know, yeah. And when I started doing paychecks, he asked me to hand them over so I could do the budgeting. And that sounded reasonable. I figured, okay, well, there's no point in both of us doing it. So, you know, but then he was like, I need you to get direct deposit. And I'm like, okay. And then he took the debit card and the checkbook. So I had to literally beg him for gas money to go to work. And if I needed
so horrible. That's like a trap. You're trapped. Like, you are trapped at that point. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And then,
I do not get it. Why they want to do that, and where does this come from? And they know what they're doing, because if they hid it from you before the marriage, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, because if they do it before, you're not going to marry him. You're going to be like, no, something's wrong with you. Bye. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, they get you trapped. They cut you off from your family and your support. And then he started stalking me after I'd get out of work to make sure I wasn't talking to a coworker, might actually make a friend. And, you know, the one time he agreed to go out, you know, allow me to go out with my friends from the bank that I was working at, and he went with. He ordered a several-course meal and a drink, and the waitress, you know, got to me, and he's like, oh, she can have my side salad and water.
Oh, my gosh, very abusive.
Yeah.
In every way.
Like, what? I was hungry. Yeah. And then, you know, so it came to, like, winter time with my car, and I was like, you know what? I really need to get winter maintenance on it, or it's going to have trouble starting. No, you don't need it. It did have trouble. I ended up on West Saginaw Highway in Lansing in the middle of winter with it dead and having to push it into, like, the driveway at work. And he got so mad when it got towed back home that he was kicking and beating the holy, you know, daylights out of this car. And and I was afraid I was next. And then we'd had a flood in the basement while we were gone, and came back, and the sump pump had been plugged. And so I was like, okay, I've got all this really stinky wet laundry. I'm going to need Febreze for laundry for it. And he was like, nope, you don't need it. And I'm like, well, it's taking me like 3 washes to get the smell out of each load. And he's like, that's okay. But he said I needed to have all the laundry, dishes, washed, dried, and put away before he got home from work, and dinner on the table. And there was like literally not enough hours in the day. And he wrote on this board that you can write on and wipe off. He said that he wanted, and he did this in capital letters, you need to get all the dishes, laundry, washed, dried, put away, and dinner on the table by the time I get home, or else. And or else was like underlined like 6 times with exclamation point. And it was like,
scary.
oh my God, what am I in the middle of here? This is like Twilight Zone. And if I didn't do things like scrub the floor with a toothbrush, he would like threaten to throw out my stuff in random dumpsters. And they would be things like from, dead relatives, memorabilia, my best friend who passed away, something that he gave me before he did, and it was just the most bizarre, like, way of entrapping me. And then he would, like, I had a cat, and he would threaten to kill the cat.
Oh, my goodness.
And, yeah, and, so one of the times before this really escalated, he knew how important the Phantom of the Opera was to me, because when I was on a band trip, we saw it. So I was all excited, and he said, yeah, we're going next week. Oh, okay, yeah, we're going on such and such. And then the day of, he has me scrubbing the floor with a toothbrush in a bathrobe. And I'm like, you know what? I should be getting ready, if we're going to be leaving for dinner, No. And then, then I'm getting really worried because it's like, I need to have time to get ready. No. Well, his mom shows up at the back door with the tickets, and I thought she was just bringing them for us. And he was all dressed, and I was, like, getting worried. And when I realized the way that they were talking, they were going to dinner and going to the Phantom without me. I started crying. She's like, what's Kelly crying for? He's like, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Let's go. And
oh, my gosh.
Was
she mean, too? Was she mean to you, too?
At times, yeah. I mean, she just she'd been abused by his dad, and so they were no longer together, but I think she knew the position I was in, but she didn't want to get in the middle of it or wreck her relationship with her son, because I don't think she really wanted to know that or realize, because there was a point where he did that thing with the write on wipe off board, and these things must be done. And when he got home, I had dinner ready, but he was upset that the pans that I'd used for dinner were not clean yet. And I said, well, we're going to have dishes from dinner anyway. I figured I would do them all at once. And, he was mad. And then we were going to watch something in the living room. And I had, like, the tray on my lap with the food. And, he had his. And I told him, you know what? I don't need to be treated this way. I don't deserve that. And he started to get angry. And he would tell me how I couldn't make it on my own, that I needed him, that that I was too dumb to, live by myself, and he just went through all this stuff, and I said, no, look, I know I can do this on my own. There's a girl that started about the same time I did at the call center, and she has her own apartment, and there's an opening. He flew off of the chair, came over to me, knocked my food out of my lap onto the floor, and he started shaking me, like, violently. And he'd gone to, like, the appointments that with the migraine specialist that said that I can't have whiplash because with that particular kind I could die. He was violently shaking me and banging my head against the back of the couch and the wall. And then he started punching me in the jaw and I blacked out.
Oh my gosh, Kelly. I did not know you went through this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I know
you.
you're a strong woman. What did you do? How'd you get away from him?
Well, I ended up dragging myself, partway to the bathroom to see what my whole face and stuff was all messed up with, and I passed out, and then I got awake again, and I ended up crawling there and pulling myself up the vanity to the sink and up to the mirror, and I looked at my face and I was like, oh my God, like my jaw was all swollen on one side, and I did not look okay. And
wow. Was he still there, or did he leave?
Yeah, he was in the basement. And so I made my way to the kitchen because I was scared. I thought, my God, I need to get these dishes done, or what else is he going to do? So, yeah, I started, furiously, doing dishes as well as I could, and then he came up from the basement, and I got upset. I figured at this point I don't have anything to lose. So I took the knife, and I stood there, and I said, don't you ever do anything like that to me again. And then he took the knife and, brought it behind me, and he's like, or what? And he ended up throwing me across the kitchen and, pushing me into the counter. So, ever since then, I've had lower back problems and neck problems. And, yeah, he gave me a closed head injury. The next morning when he left for work, I made sure that he wasn't forgetting something and coming back. And my head was so scrambled that I couldn't even think about, I knew I needed to call 911, but it didn't dawn on me that was the actual number. So I'm looking through a phone book. Yeah, so it was bad. And then they got there, they took pictures, they interviewed me, they talked about me going to the courthouse to file a PPO and to file for divorce. And I just, you don't have Google Maps, so I was just driving around in circles until I found it, and I got there almost at closing time by the time I did. And I ended up filing for divorce, doing the PPO, but I don't know if I think I might have gotten partway done, and they realized that I needed help, and that's when the ambulance came. And I don't know how long I was there in the ER, but I do know when my parents came, I don't remember it, and I didn't know who they were. They had to go through my purse to find out who I was and contact information. And I just remember going home with them and thinking, wow, what a nice couple. They must, rescue a lot of people, because that's really nice for them to show up. And I didn't recognize my cat. I didn't recognize my room or pictures of me. I was like, wow, this is kind of freaky. I kind of look like that girl. It just didn't dawn on me who I was. And they didn't know I was as bad as I was. And then, that whole time in the kitchen with the whole knife thing and everything, he told me that if I told anyone, he would come after me when I least expect it, but he would go after everybody and everything that I cared about first so that I would suffer. And then he told me how he was going to do it for each one and how he was going to do that with me, and that they would never find my parts. So, yeah, I ended up having to hide out in 2 different domestic violence shelters, because now this is the real kicker. His mom and his sister were social workers. His mom worked at a domestic violence shelter. So they had to change my name in the system so she couldn't find me. And the whole time we're going to court, she's there, doing, glares at me. I don't remember much of this. I'm being told this by, my parents after the fact. But basically it waited until he pled guilty to a lesser charge before she got upset and realized that he really did this.
Oh, my God.
And then, yeah. Had I not had the support of my parents, I don't know what I would have done. I'd probably be homeless. Who knows?
So, oh, my gosh. And you were right out of high school. And, when you're right out of high school, you're still really so young, just a kid. Most of us are, teenagers. How old were you? 18, 19?
I was 18, but by the time we got married, I was 24. So he hid it that well.
Wow.
And now I know red flags and signs to look for, but I had no idea then. I'd never run across anyone like that. And he was very charming, and seems like, he was sweet and innocent and all that stuff. And, you meet him in church, how much, safer can it be? And then I find out later he was looking for a girl in church because he thought that he'd be able to mold her into what he wanted and bully her.
Did his parents go to church? Did he have the background of being a Christian?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was bizarre.
Wait, I missed something. When he was physically in that fight with you, beating you up, did he give you a concussion, or was this where you didn't recognize your family when they picked you up? Was this from trauma?
This was from a closed head injury.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So, and those symptoms don't always show up right away.
Well, what happened to him, though, right? So, they last forever, usually. Mm-hmm. But what happened to him again? It kind of cut out when you were saying he pled to a lesser charge. Did he go do any time in jail?
He did, but it was because he pled to a lesser charge. It ended up that he was on work release, so he'd go to work during the day, and then he had to be in jail by a certain time at night. And, the whole time it was just really bizarre because he threatened to kill the judge. His lawyer fired him because he threatened to kill his lawyer. He threatened to kill my parents. He threatened to kill me and my lawyers. And, he got put in a mental hospital, and we weren't supposed to know, but it kind of leaked out. He was supposed to be on medication his whole adult life for something that was a very serious mental condition. And we think it might be that he's a psychopath, but we don't know because they couldn't tell us. But his mom knew this whole time and never, ever once warned me. And she worked for a domestic violence shelter, but she couldn't see that her son could actually do something like that. And when he was in jail and I was getting my stuff out of the house, we found a noose. And,
oh my gosh.
And we had to rescue the cat, and because he threatened to kill the cat. And I don't know if the noose was for me or the cat. And the cat went into hiding because she was afraid of him. And
very traumatized. They don't like loud.
Yeah.
And they don't like that at all.
Yeah, and his mom and his stepdad actually showed up while we were getting my stuff out, and she's like telling me she can get us back together. She's a trained mediator. And I looked at her and I said, why would I want to go back?
Oh, my goodness. That is so ridiculous. Where is he now? Has he ever tried to bother you since this?
He did through his lawyer for something really stupid. Like when he went to sell our house, I had already signed off and gotten my part of the equity out of it and signed off on anything in the future at the time of the divorce. But his lawyer contacted me at the house I'm in now, which they shouldn't even know where I live. And sent me some paperwork to sign off on so that I didn't think I was getting part of the equity. It's like, this was already taken care of back then in 2004. So it's like, okay, so he's selling the house. Why do I need to sign anything? I guess I'll just sign it, send it back, and be done. But it scared me. I'm like, great, he knows where I live. But, you know, after all this time, I'm sure he's gone on to somebody else. And then I actually did a background check on myself, and he and his family are listed as my next of kin. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then, yeah, my address is clearly right there. And, you know, the other freaky thing is he's been married since. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, that poor girl. And there was nothing on the record that I could find electronically on those searches saying that we'd been married or divorced or that he had been convicted of anything or pled to anything. So I'm like, what was the whole point in doing this? If I was trying to do that to warn the next one, because I had no warning, and if he had a record, somebody else could look it up and know what they were getting into.
That's really nice of you to do that, and hopefully if something happens, they will be able to find you to get help.
Yeah,
I know
thank
that you will help them. We'll help them.
Yeah. I've been able to help people. I've gone to domestic violence shelters and talked to the women there. In fact, when I was in the shelter, I was featured in their newsletter but with a fake name and no picture, because most women, unfortunately, they get in those situations and they go back. Like, this was unheard of back then for anybody to just be like, have it once and be like, I'm done. This is enough. Once is enough. They
always go back, usually.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was like, my story was featured in there without my name, and that was really cool. And I've talked at like the YWCA and things like that. And
great, Kelly.
Yeah,
I didn't know all that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, like, one time I was in I'm trying to think which college course it was, and we had to talk about something, you know, that was big that happened to us, and I talked about it, and I'd also talked about, like, the times that, you know, I would pass out from low blood pressure, which then they corrected with the right medicines, and now I don't need any of it because I'm fine. But he would, like, try to beat me awake or kick me awake, or I would wake up to him raping me. So So when I would talk in this class, you know, about something deeply personal that changed you, that was, you know, like traumatic or whatever, I talked about it, and what was really beautiful is I had young women come up to me and hug me and cry because things like that had happened to them, and they were too afraid to tell anyone, and they felt so alone. And some of them had been suicidal before. And it's like, that is such, I mean, a traumatic thing that I would never wish on anyone, but it's like such a gift to be able to understand and to be able to comfort someone else that's going through that or has been through it.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about that now, so people who are listening maybe can reach out to get help.
Exactly, and that's what we're here for. I mean, we can connect people with resources. When we've had Neve Petrova on, she is a huge resource for domestic violence and sexual assault. Like, there were things, I had no idea how to change your name, and you can do that. You can have it where law enforcement doesn't know your address if you've been, you know, a survivor, because sometimes, you know, fake police will, you know, do stuff and you think that it's legit, and then they find out where you live. So, I mean, there's all kinds of resources I had no idea about, and they probably didn't exist back then. But now that we have the internet,
we should bring Neve back on, because now that Barbara's here, Barbara may know some people that might benefit from Neve. Don't you agree, Kelly?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. People, that maybe they share custody with an abuser, and they're going through that, anxiety of, oh my gosh, I'm turning my kid over to this monster. Or, she's had to help people, navigate through court stuff. And I mean, she would be wonderful because it doesn't matter your education or your economic status. It happens to everyone.
When we had her on, it was sort of funny because, Kelly is this huge note taker, and and Devay was talking, and she was like, "Yes, there's this resource that blah 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 blah." And then I would get this little text message from Kelly, blah blah, list of the names, website, and then Devay would keep talking, and then she would list the resources again, and then blah blah blah, text from Kelly, the resource. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and then I was like, hey, we should put this in the show description so other people have it too.
Yeah.
Well, then we have a
that
website.
was just,
Now we have a website.
We didn't have
you
that.
can bring her back and then put the resources on the website.
Oh, that would be so perfect. We should totally do that. I would love to do that.
Okay, I will talk
so
to Devay about having her back on. I'm messaging her right now.
The sooner the better.
Thank you. This is so important. Yeah, I mean, if we can save one person, that would be totally worth it,
Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't.
Thank you for sharing, Kelly, because a lot of people, they don't ever want to talk about it again and feel like that has a stigma attached to them, but it doesn't. Like you said, it's anybody. And it doesn't make them less of a person that this happened to them. They were a victim. And I am so glad Johnny asked you that question because I had no idea about all of this. And you know how many people you could be helping right this second who are listening?
Yeah. It's I hate to be excited about something that is so bad, but I'm excited about helping people because, I mean, I've been through so many different things that a lot of people haven't, gone through all those in their life. And it was not, just to torture me. It was, or make my life miserable. It was so that I could help people. And, so I have firsthand knowledge that you can't get from a textbook, And I made it through and I survived. And now and that's one of the books I'm going to write is How to Survive and Learn to Thrive.
It's funny.
Because it's one thing to survive.
I like that title.
Thank you.
There was. Did you ever see the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yes.
I have not.
Okay.
I know.
Well,
Brian's
you
like,
should
what?
see it because. Well, see, let me tell you what it is. There is this. It's about this kid who basically is a mathematical wizard. Who basically you give him a problem, he'll boom, he'll give the answer. And what happened was that he got, I think, into some trouble legally or something. And what happened was that they sent him to a therapist. Well, the therapist was played by Robin Williams. And what happened was that Robin Williams, basically the therapist, what had happened was up until now, all the therapists that he had weren't very street smart because he would always, the kid knew how to, deflect. He just deflected. He would street smart out of his way. And then finally, one of the things that Robin Williams, his character, finally said to him, he says, the thing is that this kid was extremely educated. Like you could talk to him about, when the First World War ended and when the Second World War started and when when Hitler died and all this other stuff. But, he would say, or here's a good example. Like he would say he would know all about Mozart, but he's never seen a symphony. Or he knows about art, but he doesn't know what it's like to be in Europe. And I guess the point I'm trying to get at is this sort of falls in line with what you're saying, is that you can give all the resources in the world. And I'm not putting down the day, but there's the resources, but then there's what it's really like. Or, or
Well,
the people that are in
I
Vietnam
think she
vet?
knows what it's like because she's talked
Oh,
about it.
I'm sure she does. I'm sure she does. Yeah, I'm sure she does. I'm sure she does.
Yeah, and a
I
lot
guess what
of
I'm trying
times
to say is
people that have been through it, they're more driven to help people because,
right.
they don't like seeing people
But I guess what
in
I'm
a
trying to say
situation.
is that you could know the resources that the Bay has, but not necessarily experience it. I know of the Bay's experienced it, but what I'm saying is there's more to it than just getting a list of resources. Is what I'm getting at. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, or reading about it. Like if you're in a class and you have normal psychology or whatever class, and it's one thing to study about it, and then another completely to go through it.
Right.
You think if you met somebody, Kelly, that had been abused, like by a husband or a man, can you feel that?
Sometimes men-
If they don't want to talk about it, can you feel that?
Yeah, usually. And, I've met a lot of men that have been abused. And
Right.
it's really starting to now, in this day and age of acceptance and open-mindedness, thank God, there are more resources, but there's still only like 2 shelters for domestic violence in the United States that'll take a man.
Oh,
and that
really?
is really sad.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Isn't
That's
that
not right.
horrible?
Yeah.
No. So, yeah. So it's, and that can be also like, that's something that we need to do something and shed light on because, my goodness,
Oh, yeah. I know a couple of men who were abused by their wives.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
hey, you come around a corner and your wife
Want me to say
is
that?
around the corner
Oh.
and hit you in the face with a rake, and you can't do anything about it,
Oh.
and you're bleeding from your forehead, and all you can do is just like walk away because she's going to call the police if you do anything about it, like try to hold her down or anything. And those men are abused, and I know one very close to me that
well,
happened to. Yeah.
Brian, yeah. Well, I know somebody extremely close to me. Brian just said that I could come forth and say that about him, that his ex had alienated him from any resources, anybody that really knew him and cared about him, just like my ex-husband did. And then it took him 6 months to be able to get away from her because, of how controlling everything was and not having the resources, and he had to do it all on his own. So, and she was,
wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
did he run into that problem where she would try to entrap him and try to call the police on him, trying to make it look like it was him?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And yeah. So, I mean, it's horrible for men to go through too. And
definitely.
Yeah.
There's kids involved and all that.
They didn't have any shared kids, thank God. But he was attached. He cared about her, kid and grandkid, but it wasn't, it wasn't like they shared one. So it's not like he had to see her or whatever. But like the women in the shelter with me, like a lot of times, if the man's convicted of beating her but not the kids, he still gets to have visitation with them, and that's torturous.
Totally
because,
torturous.
Yeah, I mean, why would you feel safe, handing your kids over when he's beat the crap out of you? But
I know, and then
he's
he's probably
poisoning it to them
and verbally poisoning them against her.
Yeah, and if not that, then you never know if he was able to do that to her, if at some point he might do that to the kids, and by then it's already too late.
Yes, and there's got to be some kind of a screening that women can do to know who are they marrying, because like you said, he hid it from you for 5 years or something like that before you married him.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. Yeah, and now I know like the red flags, even if they're not big, something's not right, I know to pay attention, but at that point I didn't really have the knowledge, and I didn't know what was normal and what wasn't, and you're young, you don't have the experience. And when you're in an exclusive relationship, that's all you know. I mean, so it's not like you're getting experience elsewhere. So
Well, I want to
yeah,
ask.
and
So, okay, so second, that's a little odd behavior, or that's I wish I would have listened to my inner guide about that. Any of that happen?
yeah, there were some weird, being that I don't have any siblings, I wasn't really sure what, an appropriate relationship between siblings was supposed to be, or between, mother, son, or whatever. It was kind of like gray areas to me, and it was like, this doesn't feel right, but I don't have anything in black and white. So, there were those things, but there were also the things like, they all had like a cutting, digging type joking way about them, or they would make light of the fact that when they were teenagers, he tried to break down his sister's door to get to her. I mean, they made it jokey and funny at the table. I thought, well, they wouldn't be joking about it if it was serious.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, bad, very bad. Any violence at all is not a joke. I can't believe that family. Mm-mm. And she probably went through hell, that little sister.
Yeah, and she became a social worker too and worked with troubled kids. And, it's just bizarre they couldn't acknowledge it in their own family. And until they had to, it was staring him straight in the face, because he pled to a lesser charge, but he still pled guilty. And then it was like, there's no denying it. It's like, it's right there.
But still could be. They were just, people will deny it till the end. They're in denial.
Yeah. Oh, their son can't do that. Yeah. Right. And, I mean, she did walk out of the courtroom that day crying. It was the first time she didn't, walk with him back and arm around each other. She wanted to get the heck out of there. And
so she finally did come around, so that's good, and believed you. I mean, thank goodness.
Yeah. 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 We had a lot of expert testimony, that it made it like, how could they deny what happened when we have these things right there?
Right.
So
it's not like you're going to go break your own jaw.
Exactly. I mean, I had to have like liquids through a straw because I couldn't use my jaw. I had, all kinds of stuff. I had
horrible.
Yeah. I mean, who would do that to themselves? So,
but this is not when you got pregnant and lost your baby, though. This was not with that relationship. I just want to get to that.
No, thanks.
That would have been really hard to have a baby with him, though. But that wasn't then?
No, but he did make me terrified of getting pregnant, because he punched me in the stomach and yelled, "No babies." And then I was like, I had my eyes like as big as saucers, and then then he said, well, if you get pregnant, I'm going to use a coat hanger and a vacuum.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, all this stuff comes out after we're married, so I've been terrified of getting pregnant my entire life. And then last year with a different relationship, I ended up having that miscarriage. So it's like, I've been through a lot of hard things, but
this
like
was
I
only
said,
a year ago. I did not know it was only a year ago. Wow.
Yeah. And so I thought, oh my gosh, miracle baby.
We need to get your mind clear, because a lot has to do with the thought about getting pregnant too. When you have that fear, it stops you up from conceiving sometimes. I know an instance where this woman could not get pregnant by her husband, and he went to massage class and started massaging her because she was so stressed out, and they adopted actually a child. And then when she wanted to still have her own, carry a baby and have it, she wanted that badly, he started massaging her, and she got pregnant right away 2 more times and had babies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. Yeah. Well, if I had that now, we'd have cause for concern. It would have to be immaculate conception because he's had a vasectomy.
Oh, really?
So,
that can be reversed. That can be
I mean,
yeah,
Nancy,
that's true.
You said that the show helped you get over your depression involving the what do you call it? Miscarriage. Is that true?
Yes, it's helped me through so many things. And it's helped me feel empowered, which is something that I've not felt in a very long time. And, it's so wonderful to be able to talk to people and to be able to acknowledge the gift and to be able to help people with that too. It's like I don't have to hide that. I spent too much of my life in hiding.
We're grateful for it, especially that first day when
you
cleansed my chakras and you found so many things. And I just couldn't even believe your reading on me, how amazing. Things that you saw were, it was just crazy. And I'd say, oh, Kelly, do you see that? Do you see what's going on here, what's going on there? And you nailed it every time.
Oh, thank you. I love this. I love this now. I'm not afraid of it now. So, it's like this is my gift to be able to help people. And I truly embrace it because, I can only imagine what it would have been like going through the things that I'd gone through had this been available to me. Oh, my gosh. All those torturous moments of feeling alone, and it would have been so nice for somebody to just, to acknowledge and understand.
Good point. That makes me feel so good, even better. And we've explained so much how great we feel for helping people. But today, I even feel that much more grateful that I'm a part of this show because I really feel strongly that we are helping several people right this minute on this show.
Oh, good. I really hope so. I hate to acknowledge that stuff's going on right now somewhere, but yeah, if we can help at least one person, then it will all be worth it.
Yes,
and
it really will.
And people have asked me, if I could go back to when I was 20 and talk to myself, what would I say? I'm like, I wouldn't, because it led me to where I am and who I am right now, right here, right now. Any little change could have thrown me off this path, and this is where I belong.
That's right. No regrets. What a wonderful way to live.
Thank you. Yeah, I used to be afraid of everything and regretted things, and now it's like I don't want to carry around that burden anymore, and I have a new life.
Yeah, and you could be the type of person who has the poor me's, like, oh, why me? Why did I have to find the husband that abused me? Why did I have to go through all of that? And you could have gone that route, but you're strong, and you're seeing the good in it, and that is amazing. You are a very strong woman.
Thank you. I don't think I always was, but no.
That's okay. It's never too late, and you became one from it.
True. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you always were, though, because you stood up to him in that kitchen, and that took a lot of strength right there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'd had enough, and at that moment I figured, what else have I got to lose?
Right.
And yeah.
Oh. And thank you, Brian, for letting her share about your instance, because your situation back then, because I had no idea there's only 2 shelters that took in men. That needs to be changed.
Yeah, it is hard when, you're just when someone just controls every aspect like money, because you can't go anywhere. I was looking for rooms, and I was actually cashing part of a check before I actually handed the cash over to her. I would pocket it in Walmart at the cash checking to just skim a little bit off the top to try to get a nest egg going. And I actually discovered that she had found that and actually stole it from me later.
Oh.
So that put me back. So that put me back even farther. And she claimed that she'd never found it or anything like that. She said that I must have lost it when I was drunk.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow. So totally it can happen to men. I always knew that, but a lot of people out there do not know that. And why could it not?
Right.
And he's violent.
And
why could it
exactly.
not?
And it wasn't physical abuse at all. It was emotional and mental abuse. And that can be just as much, if not even more devastating sometimes. I had told someone, I would rather her just punch me in the face every day than to go through some of the things that she put me through.
Right. I understand. I had a very verbal, abusive stepfather that, it is paralyzing sometimes. And then the money and her holding that, oh, wow. How'd you get out of that?
Paralyzing is the perfect word. I feel like she paralyzed my life, and I feel like I just became this shell, and that I wasn't even a person anymore. I felt like she treated her kids better than she treated me.
Wow. How many years did you endure that?
Almost 3. It was on and off. It was on and off because she would either kick me out for a while and then bring me back, and I had no choice to come back because literally she would kick me out and I'd go to a homeless shelter or go live above a garage at my friend's house or something. And then she'd take me back, and it's what choice did I have? It was better than living in a shelter. And it was okay for a while, and then until she would start it again, and it was just kind of a never-ending cycle. Things would be good for a few months, and then it would just go back down again. And I just let myself get back into it because I just was tired. I never got ahead far enough to be able to be out on my own until now, and it's just wonderful. I think it's wonderful that Kelly and I live separately because, we're not up each other's butts all the time, every night and everything. We spend our most weekends together, and it's wonderful. It's created this bond and friendship that is deeper than just most, flash in the pan relationships that happen this fast. I mean, Kelly and I were practically overnight. But the thing is that we are building this foundation because of the distance, because we're both very independent, and I think that's just very healthy for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I think it's about out of time, but thanks for everybody for coming on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you. You guys are great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and continue because we have a lot more work to do with this subject, and I really think that this is something that we can help people with out there big time. So thank you guys for sharing, and
thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Talk to you soon.
Kelly, you were
soon. Have a great weekend.
Amazing and interesting. You're an amazing woman. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks.